And Commissioner Skelton, thank you, my friend, for making time and coming in and talking with us today.
Anytime. I really appreciate you having me.
Man, and so I want to premise first because, we've interviewed you before on different segments, and we've talked with different elected officials. But one of the things that I think people absolutely love about you and they find so refreshing and so relatable is you're not necessarily a politician. You haven't done this your whole life, and you are one of us, somebody that wants change. And so some of these questions, I want your honest, genuine take on and your opinion on and what you feel and see is going on in Camden County. And so if you're okay with it, that's kind of the angle and the premise that I'd like to lay out for this interview.
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very good. So first and foremost, it's the new year. You're now no longer the new presiding commissioner
Right.
of Camden County. So what's your take after, your first roll around the calendar?
Well, one of the first things I really want to bring up is having been an activist for a long time and still wanting to be that activist, it's a little different coin when you're now sitting in that seat, right?
Sure.
So when you're an activist, you kind of see outside and you think that you know how things should probably go. You read the Constitution, you look at different statutes and just general premise of, read Thomas Jefferson and a lot of things from our founders and understand what liberty is about. And then you go get into these offices and you try to apply that. And you find out that it's not quite as easy as it looks. And that you have to consider a lot of different things and things that you might want to say, well, why are we doing it that way? Well, then you find out once you're in there why things are getting done that way. I want to tell you, I'm still fascinated with the job. I very well enjoy it. I appreciate having been given the opportunity to do it. And I just find that there's really a lot of good people in Camden County that want to do a great job for Camden County. But I believe that at the top for many years, there has just kind of been you wind everybody up, let them go, and just kind of see what happens sort of attitude, and there haven't been a lot of checks and balances. And I think that is one thing as an activist that and those of us that are not in that government really want to see. They want to see the checks and balances. And knowing how government is supposed to work versus how you maybe see it, we have probably caused a little more stir because of those checks and balances. I don't believe that the position of county commissioner, whether it be myself or the associate commissioners, is to just kind of sit there and let things kind of happen. I believe we have to be proactive in what is going on because, mischief does abound just in general human nature, right? So you have to keep a closer eye on everything that is going on and be more involved in all of the process. And that is what I have found for this first year was just by asking questions and wanting to be involved in the entire process a little bit more. Tend to got a little bit of pushback and a little bit of tension there and whatnot. But I think it's a good thing in the long run because we're finding out that again. It just seems like the county's been on autopilot for a very long time.
And as you get some of that pushback, do you feel like the people of Camden County and your constituents are pleased with the fact that you guys in your office is starting to ask questions and unfold some of these rocks or unturn some of these rocks?
Yeah, we haven't done everything perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I've already made a few different mistakes and a couple of little decisions to be made. Thankfully, I've not done, something really totally stupid yet, but there's a little bit of that pushback, but not a lot. It seems like everybody it wants to really get along. And I think, this might be kind of odd to say, but I almost think for maybe even a little more different from me than maybe some others coming in, I kind of felt like a lot of people just sat back and said, okay, what's this guy going to do? And maybe they're even kind of waiting for the fall or something, waiting for that trip to be made and then sadly maybe reveling in it a little bit. I don't know. But.
Well, sure. So, one of the things that our viewers and people here around the Camden County area and all of the lake area, we get to see the hot button issues from, you guys had a spat with a Sheriff Helms that was recorded with Commissioner Gohagan, and there was some stuff there. And then we had the plate recognition system recently where you guys had passed a law banning that technology in Camden County, and much dismay of Camden County Sheriff Tony Helms, and he had released a letter on their public Facebook page, and it seemed to be just an overwhelming response from the community that applauded your guys' effort. And so can you walk us through, in a real short synopsis version, Cliff Notes version, of that decision as a commission to pass that law? And then why do you think the county or the sheriff was so adamant against your guys' decision?
So, again, being that liberty guy, I'd always thought about these sorts of things. And then when I got into office, I got to thinking, instead of just sitting here and let the world revolve around us, how about we start moving the world? And, when you think about liberty, one of the first things I think about is this 1984 Orwellian type of society that we have really creeping up all over the country. And certainly the world has already seen it. Europe is seeing these cameras being used very widely. So I kind of figure if you don't ever let it get a root, then maybe it can't grow, And the first premise for automatic plate readers to be able to catch the bad guy occasionally, that sounds like a really good idea. But I got to realizing the more we get into this, it is used for the red light cameras, it's used for noise ordinance compliance, it's used for emission control compliance, it's used for speed control compliance. Well, in the end, what does all of that come back to? The automatic plate reader, because they got to know somewhere to send the ticket, right? So if you don't let that type of tyranny into your county to begin with, into your area to begin with, then it can't grow. So we had a public meeting of an evening, and as you said, the overwhelming majority of that room was absolutely opposed to automatic plate readers. It would have been very easy that night to say, they're banned, we're done, and let's go home. But I believe that we needed to look at things a little bit deeper. So we pulled back from that meeting. We got an idea of what everybody wanted. The sheriffs did put on their presentation as well with Flock. Flock being the outfit that manages these cameras and controls them all. And then we stepped back and we kind of let that ruminate and see what happens. And we came up with an ordinance that, by the way, we have passed that ordinance, but it left some exceptions in there, and I think we're going to come back and amend it and take those exceptions out.
So there are exceptions
right
in there, but you're looking to amend those and remove those
At
exceptions.
that time, we were under the impression that we had no authority over villages or cities or even state right-of-ways. But some citizens brought up some interesting statute language that I looked at, and I thought, well, maybe we do have a little more authority over this than we thought. So we're going to take those exceptions out, and we're going to look at really prohibiting them county-wide, not just in the unincorporated areas. So, and there's going to be a meeting at the villages, the Village of Four Seasons, tomorrow, I believe, Wednesday. I don't know what day this is taping, but there's a meeting there, and we're going to be a part of that to help them not put them there. So the pushback from law enforcement, I think a lot of us like new gadgets and toys that we can play with. And again, there is no denying that occasionally they will catch a bad guy, or they'll find a vehicle that was stolen. These are two most very recent examples, right? But I think about all of the different nefarious things that can be done with those cameras. I just don't want the root here to begin with.
And we, as a county, as your constituents, as your community, appreciated that and definitely supported that decision.
Thank you.
And with the fight back, the response, it seemed interesting, the timing, because my opinion was you had the report of the student resource officer, Skinner, who had been found with 14 felony counts of child pornography, the second deputy on Tony Helms' watch that had been found with a child pornography crime. And instead of addressing that, which seems to be one of the most heinous crimes can happen on your watch as a sheriff, he decides to essentially say, I didn't get my way. The commissioners, the executive branch, finally come out and do what the commissioners are supposed to do, speak for the people, didn't get his way, and he sends a cry letter to the community, and he kind of gets hit with an overwhelming reaction from the community that not just are you deflecting from not answering for the SRO Skinner and his heinous crimes, but you're also trying to take away our liberties. And the reason I say that is from your position as presiding commissioner, at this point in time when it feels like there's such a distrust from the community and the sheriff's department, is that a reason to be concerned for you guys or your office?
It is a concern because we have to have trust in all of our different offices. And, I also still believe, and being the executive and legislative branch, as it were, of the county, it is our responsibility to make sure that, certainly with the sheriff's office, that there is no oversteps of individuals' liberties. Mm-hmm. Again, we are that final check. And, you always talk about the purse and the sword. So we have the purse, the sheriff's department, usually in the justice system, has the sword. Well, without us giving them the opportunity, I figure we're kind of the hands of the sword, you know? And to me, when you put these things up, you're actually kind of tying yourself to the whipping post, because this is what they use to punish citizens with, you know? So I want to keep that, you know, we still have to work with the Sheriff's Department. We're going to continue to do that. But it's kind of a, you know, kind of a, hey, you know, we're kind of watching each other type of a relationship, instead of let's just go along to get along, because again, there hasn't been a lot of checks and balances on what has been going on in Camden County. It's just kind of been going out on its own, and we're there to rein some of that back.
Very good. And as we look at, you know, obviously that's a heartbreaking situation, that report with the student resource officer, but as a whole, Presiding Commissioner Skelton, when we look at the culture for Camden County, and not just like the old prosecutor where there was issues there, or the Sheriff's Department, or even some of the issues with planning and zoning, but as a whole, when you look at Camden County, how would you say the culture of the county is at the end of 23 looking into the new year of 2024?
Of the government?
Yeah, overall,
okay, sure.
right.
Well, I think the people of the county are appreciating some of the things that we're doing.
Sure, yeah.
We absolutely, you know, there's the occasional detractor, but for the most part, I think folks really do enjoy what we're doing. I think that there's a sense of trust now, and that maybe I don't have to keep an eye on every single thing they're doing. I can step back, because we kind of trust. And I don't want y'all to completely trust what we're doing. Do keep an eye on what we're doing. You know, keep us straight. Make sure, because we can't see everything. As a matter of fact, I tell folks, when I was running around as a locksmith, I knew what new businesses were coming in, what were going out. I knew what people were thinking and how things were going. I had the real pulse. Now, sitting in that office, even when I get out and about sometimes, I really don't get that sense. So we do need some of that feedback, and I greatly appreciate it. The people have been great with that feedback. So I hope that they feel that sense of a little sense of trust in the government itself, and then within those walls. I think some of them might be maybe not on edge, but they're kind of curious as to what we're going to do next. And if that keeps them on their toes, I think that's okay. Because again, it's just been well, I'll give you a little breaking news. So we've had to terminate a long-term supervisor at the Road and Bridge Department, because we have discovered a culture there that is maybe endemic of the culture of what Camden County used to be with the Good Old Boys Network, and maybe in some case it still is. So we've discovered this, and we did let the supervisor go. We're not completely done with how we're going to really deal with all of what we have discovered. And you know, it's primarily a mismanagement sort of thing, and just kind of, again, the culture of how things were happening there.
And that's what I was kind of asking, as when, you know, as not so much as presiding commissioner, but as, you know, locksmith and community activist, as you get in there, in those walls, like, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? Are you surprised at how it goes in and out? I mean, is it what you thought it would be? And that's more what I was wanting.
It is a little surprising to me, because so I'm still doing the job, so it's a little tough to say some things, right? But you know, I think for the most part, everybody wants to get the county going in the same direction. But you know, I think there's sometimes a lot of animosity of the commission as well as a whole, and it didn't matter who's sitting in that seat. But nobody else wants that job.
Yeah.
All of them have had the opportunity to run for that job, but most of them don't want it, right? So the commission it's an interesting job, and like you said, you know, coming from the outside in, you know, we did discover this, and it was sad how we discovered it. I have a little, just personally feel a little egg on my face, because I didn't find it myself. It had to be brought to our attention through some other things that went on. So, but every time we discover something that's happening like that, I can assure everyone that we don't try to cover it up. I am diligent in finding out what's really going on, instead of being a knee-jerk reaction to things. But yeah, coming from the outside in, again, with those idealistic thoughts of being an activist, yet then sitting in that chair and realizing, well, I have no authority over any of the elected officials whatsoever. The only type of authority, leverage, or whatever you want to call it, that we would have is the purse.
Yeah.
And we still have to give every one of those offices what they need to do their job. So
Sure.
one thing I like is we do have elected officials meetings pretty much every month, and that helps us, I think, move forward in the same direction. So.
Well, hey, we appreciate your time and what you're doing now. Ask that hopefully we can do this quarterly. I think it's great to have an update from the commission and get a
I would
status,
enjoy that.
because this is an election year. It's a big one for
Sure,
Camden
yes.
County, and so we will want to stay in touch with you. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Will.
Absolutely. That's Camden County Presiding Commissioner Ike Skelton.